All right, let's kick this off. So next session is going to be Azure DevOps loves.net, and that was a really nice introduction before me, but I need to speak with Simon about some photos and where he actually found them for that. However, just a few words. I work as a solution architect. I'm part of the Cloudion, which is recently acquired by DevOps team. Here is also my Twitter handle. If I can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out. So 25 minutes is not a lot of time, so let's kick this off. Why are we here? So .NET is a very popular platform. It's something, an amazing framework that helps us develop software for quite a few years now. I was amazed by the information that more than 38 million websites in the world are running on ASP.NET. Popularity of this even started growing even more when .NET Core was introduced with a lot of open source components and stuff. So it was a very natural way for us to move our ASP.NET applications, no matter if it's classic or core, to Azure, because basically Azure loves .NET. They come from same company, Microsoft. Created them with a lot of love, and these are things that are going well together. ASP.NET and Azure are a natural mix. But how do we actually get from our development environment to Azure? How do we put our code out there, and how do we make it available to our customers? Well, the answer is very simple. We're going to do it with Azure DevOps. Another tool from Microsoft family that is really tightly put together with all the other things in the ecosystem. So it makes a natural thing. It makes a natural environment for everything in that ecosystem. Let's basically look at the demo, and we're going to basically spend the rest of our session in here. So what I'm going to do in Azure DevOps, I have a DevOps organization, so I'm going to create a new project. So let's call it Cloud Summit, and this should be done relatively quickly. And of course, when you're doing a demo, it's taking a bit longer. Okay, here we are. So new organization, new project was created inside my organization. And if I go to the repos, I can see that it's empty. I will right now initialize my main branch just by adding a README file. This is a default placeholder just for me to know that this repo exists. And when I actually connect to it, that I know that something is in there. So as a next step, let's go with the starting up a Visual Studio, and I'm going to clone a repository. I'm going to connect to my Azure DevOps. Once the list shows, I'm going to select the organization. Come on. Okay, here we are. I'm going to select the organization. I'm going to select the repository I just created, and I'm going to connect to it. So here we are. Next thing I want to do will be clone the repository. So I will create the clone of my repository. And if I go to solution, I can see the README file that was generated when I initialized the repository itself. So we know we are connected there. Now, this doesn't mean much. Let's add some code to it. So I will simply add a new project. I will select ASP.NET Core Web App. We will select that one. Let's call the project name Cloud Summit. We want to place it in the same repository, and so it's in the folder. So we are creating Cloud Summit. Let's kick it off. We will select .NET Core 3.1. Project is created. And here we are. We have a bit of code right now. This is nothing major. This is just an empty ASP.NET Core project, but it will be enough of a code to showcase what we are trying to demo here. So this.
Mustafa, can you zoom in a little bit?
Okay, let's see. Is it better now?
Better.
Okay, perfect. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to commit this to our repo. So let's go to the Git changes. I will exclude the files that were generated by my Visual Studio. So these folders that you'd see with .vs, those are generated locally, and you probably don't want them in your repository, but the rest of the files I want to commit. So I will create initial commit to create a stage commit. And then I will commit it. I will commit it to my repository and push the changes. Initiating push and successfully pushed. So let's go back to my repository. So if I refresh right here, here we are. My code showed up. Everything is in here. So code is there. I'm ready to collaborate with my teammates. Everyone in the team can work on this right now. So let's move on and start creating additional components for this. So we want a fully functional CI/CD for this in order to, once the code is in there, we want to build it and then push it to Azure. So let's start by creating a pipeline. And we can create two versions of pipeline. We can do either YAML files or we can use a classic editor. Right now, I'm going to use a classic editor as a first instance, and then we'll move to the second one a bit later. So I'll use a classic editor. It offers me to select where my code is. So naturally, it recognizes that it's in Azure repos, and it recognizes where my code is. But I have other options like Git, GitHub Enterprise Server, Subversion, and so on. I will select the one, and then I have an option to select between the templates. I will select ASP.NET Core as my template, and it will basically generate everything required for me. I will do two additional changes on this one. First one is because in this state, it will not run. Why? Because by default, it's using an older version of Windows agent that doesn't support .NET Core 3.1. Like .NET Core 2.1 and all the versions could run on this, but this one wouldn't. So I'm going to change that to Windows Server 2022. So basically to ensure that I'm running the latest version that is supported. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disable test assemblies because I don't have that right now in my repo. Of course, you definitely want to have tests. You want during your build to run tests, but I don't have any in the repo right now, so I will just keep them to not to waste time. And I can do save and queue, and this will trigger my first build. This will create the build on my build agent, and will execute all the steps that were defined in the build. So what it's going to do is basically, once the agent starts, and it should be any time now, hopefully. Yeah, here we are. It will initialize job. It will collect the code from my repository, then do set the proper version of NuGet restore. It will create the build, and then basically publish symbol path and publish artifact. This last step is very important in our process because after successful build, we want a package that we can actually deploy to our servers. While we're waiting for this to end, we are gonna quickly create a web app where we actually want to deploy this. So I'm gonna do a template deployment, and I have kind of prepared templates, so I'm gonna just use them. So I have a template file and parameter file, which are basically, ARM templates are basically a JSON file that contains information about my infrastructure. Everything's in place. I'm just going to change it to West Europe, so it's closer to me and it responds more fast. It responds faster to me. We'll do create, and It should be on its way. Perfect. Okay. Where are we with the build? Okay, build completed. We did publish symbol path. We are publishing an artifact and cleanup, and we're done. So as a result, we have an artifact. That's very important part, because right now, if I go to artifact, I can see that I have a web app zip that basically contains the files that I want to deploy. So this is the part that's really important for us. As a next step, we are going to set up a release. So we did a continuous integration. We built the code. We created the package for deployment, but we need additional step to actually put it somewhere to actually be available to people. So let's do a new pipeline. And again, here we are going to be offered a bunch of templates, and I'm going to do Azure App Service deployment. So we're good there. I'm going to select an artifact. Artifact is basically you need to select a build in your project. So I have a single one, cannot be a mistake there. And I have several diff options when which version I want to run. Obviously, I want to do latest because I want my code to be deployed every time I change it. So we're good there. As a next step, I need to set up my Azure subscription. So let's connect to my Azure subscription. I'm going to select this one, and I need to authorize it. So I'm going to use my Azure account. I'm going to log in. And obviously, I need to approve MFA notification. So I approved MFA check. We're good to go. And this is now creating a service to my Azure subscription, so I can actually connect from my Azure DevOps organization and deploy the code. In the meantime, while we're waiting for this one to finish, let's see what's going on here. So this one was finished, and if I go to resource groups, there is a Cloud Summit resource group where I have a simple app service running. So let's check it out. If I go to this web app, this is basically an empty website. It's just single HTML to tell you that your web app is up and running and you can actually access it. It's waiting for your code, so everything is ready. Okay, subscription was authorized. As a next step, I need to select app service. I'm going to use that one that I created previously, and I'm going to say save. And once I say save, I'm going to say also create a release. And here we are. Release started. Hopefully, we will not wait much for it, and it will start immediately. And while this is happening, let's move on back to the web app and see a couple of things. So we mentioned previously that cloud offers a lot of different things, and it's a perfect platform. But when it comes to app service, and that is probably one of my favorite services in Azure, there are some amazing things. One of the favorite things is definitely scaling out. So what scaling out does is basically creating rules that allow you to create additional instances of your application to handle increased workloads. This actually allows you to save on cost, because you can run a minimum instance of the application when you don't have traffic, and as number of users increase, it can grow. So if I create scale rules, I can say that based on the metric, I can add a rule that says, for example, if my CPU percentage is over 70%, automatically increase the count of instances to 1. And if I add a rule, it will automatically create additional instance for my application. However, you have to be careful with this one, because if you scale infinitely, you have to scale down eventually, and that will never happen if you don't have scale out rules. So it's also remember that once the CPU drops, you should decommission some of the instances. Okay, this was done. Probably, let's see. Yeah, application was deployed. So what the release process does, it just gets the artifact that we created during the build and then deploys it to Azure App Service. So let's check it out. If I refresh here, I should get my app. And here we are. It's really simple. Cloud Summit, welcome. Nothing special in there, but here it is. It's deployed. Now, this allows me to trigger manually the build and push it to Azure whenever I want. But what if I want every change that is created to actually be put in Azure? Well, I can definitely automate that. There are two things I need to do here. First one would be to go to my build, to my CI pipeline, and under the triggers, I want to enable continuous integration. And right now, I'm just going to save it. I'm going to do a similar thing with the release, and I'm going to edit the release and say that I want similar thing. I want to enable trigger. So whenever new artifact is available, it should start the process automatically. Let's quickly go back to our Visual Studio, and I'm going to open Pages and just edit index and change welcome to Cloud Summit. We're going to save that one, and we're going to commit the change. So home page change, I'm going to commit that one. I'm going to push it and successfully pushed. So if I go back to my repository and check out what happened, is basically in the pages and check out the index, we can change that the change was made. I can see the change I just did in my Visual Studio. It was pushed successfully. Now, automatically, once I push this, this should create a new build. So yeah, as we can see, the build is running. We can see that there is build in process. So already did a couple of things. It already got the code, did NuGet, set the NuGet version, doing a NuGet restore, building a solution which should be completed relatively fast. Okay, everything done, pushing the artifact, and it's completed. We can see that there is a new artifact created. Right now, we have a new web app zip, and this should automatically start the new release process as well. So let's check it out. Yeah, here it is. Release was just created. So new release is on the way. It was already queued, and it's actually already running. So we have a new build process automatically triggered, and access after successful build, we have automatical release. So the artifact was downloaded, it's deployed to Azure App Service right now. It should copy the files. If I remember correctly, it's going to be 59 files uploaded, and it should be done relatively quickly in time for us to do a couple of more things. And it's always slower when you're waiting for it. Okay, here we are. So let's check it out. Let's see if it's already pushed. Here we are. Changes there. Welcome to Cloud Summit is available. Okay, so what we mentioned at the beginning, we can do two types of pipelines. We can do a classic one that we showed, and we can do a YAML. We probably want to do YAML because we want to use pipelines as a code as well. We want our pipelines to be treated the same way as the code, because there are multiple benefits. First, change tracking. It's easier to handle. You can revert to your version of the pipeline at the point where you want to run your code and so on. So it's much easier. What I'm going to do is disable this trigger, because I don't want this one to be triggered automatically anymore. And I'm going to do another pipeline. So I'm going to do a new pipeline, but this time I'm going to do a YAML one. So I'm going to do Azure repos. I'm going to do Cloud Summit as a repository, and it automatically recognizes what kind of code I have. So it's recognized it's some kind of ASP.NET. I'm going to select the core one, and it's going to generate some kind of pipeline for me. It already creates steps for me as it is. If I go to save and run, it will commit the code. So what it has here is it will either commit it directly to the main branch or create a new branch. I don't have a time for creating branches and running pull requests, so I'll just commit directly to the main branch. And it's creating a pipeline. And if I go to my repos now, you can see a new file. There are Azure Pipelines here right now. We have Azure Pipelines that is basically describing how my pipeline works. And any kind of change and everything that's happening, we can track in the same way as we are tracking the code. And if we want to return to an instance of a code at some point, we can easily revert to same version of the pipeline, or the pipeline that we were using at the time when that code was actually in use as well. Okay, so let's see what's going on. This pipeline is running. So it did a couple of steps and stuff. So NuGet installer command is going to do build. I should probably remove the test because I don't have them. But you may notice that there are a couple of steps missing here as well. We are missing publish part. We will not get an artifact here. It will not automatically generate it for us. So we will need to adjust this pipeline a bit and add them. We can do that in two different ways. So I will go to my pipeline. So this one is done. So I will go to the same pipeline and I say edit.
Mustafa, maybe you can wrap up, right?
Yeah. Just so I will remove this task, and I can either use assistance. So if I go to the publish, it will give me an assistance that I can fill in. Or the other option is, if I go to my classic pipeline, I can simply, selected the wrong one when you're in the hurry. If I go to my classic pipeline, I can get the information. If I go to the task that I'm missing, I can select YAML and get the code that I'm missing here. So I will just paste it here and do the same thing for the publish. Why am I showing this? A lot of people, when starting out with YAML pipelines, are not quite comfortable with writing that manually. So this is kind of a way to actually help you out. And we simply push save. Our new pipeline is updated, and as a result of this pipeline, we're going to get the same artifact that we have previously. What we need to do is adjust our release, select the new build pipeline to get the artifact, and we're good to go to release again. Okay, as I said, not a lot of time. Thank you for your attention, and I really hope you enjoyed this session. If there are any questions.